It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com.
Welcome to Lighten Up, a show about bringing more love, light, and joy into your life, and archived on the Lighten Up program page. Please join us in the chat room by clicking on the chat room icon located on the left-hand side of our menu bar. Now the host of Lighten Up, Isabel Merians.
Welcome to Lighten Up with Isabel, your good news show. I'm delighted that you're here with us today, and I am here to bring you ways of bringing more love, light, and joy into your life. I always start each program with good news, and so today I'm going to share some good news with you. The best news is that you're watching, so you have your eyes, your vision. People take many things for granted, but that's certainly a blessing. Also, I want to say the fact that you're watching shows that you have curiosity about ways of improving your life. The good news that I have, perhaps some of you have read about in the papers, but the best news of all today is that I have a very distinguished guest, Dina Guston Baker. Dina is an extraordinary abstract expressionist and has had a huge, huge career in art. So huge, as a matter of fact, that I'm going to need a few notes to refer to because I couldn't memorize all of her accomplishments. Welcome, Dina.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
It's my great pleasure to have you. And before we start with you, I'm going to tell them about a few other good things that are happening in the world today. One of the things I noted was that a young Irish girl by the name of Caitlin Crosby was she's 15 years old, she's Irish, and she was trying to help raise money for the homeless. And what she did in order to do that was to spend a night out on the streets with homeless people. And she realized how terribly uncomfortable that was. And that led to her developing an extraordinary sleeping bag, which is both waterproof and rainproof for these people. And she also employs them now to manufacture these actual sleeping bags. I thought that was quite an accomplishment for a 15-year-old. Another thing that you might have read is that the Pope, whom I think is an absolutely amazing human being, and the leader of the Russian Orthodox Church met together like brothers for the first time because that element of the church has been divided for the last 1,000 years. So that happened since the ancient days of Constantinople. Remember that song?
Yeah,
Constantinople was. Anyhow, the other thing I wanted to mention was that 2 years after Hurricane Katrina did so much destruction, 1,500 volunteers gathered together to erect playgrounds for nearly 36,000 New Orleans children. So these are all nice news from the world. Dina started painting at the age of
5.
And it was noted at that time that you were able to draw incredible hands. Was that it?
Well, actually the whole figure was, kind of contemplated. But I did hands and feet, with toes. For a 5-year-old, that's a little unusual.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
So basically, I think what you were getting was a sign that you had a great inherent gift.
Apparently, I didn't think of it that way then, but I came to understand it.
Mhm.
The more they demanded of me, like in regular school, they always wanted me to decorate the boards, blackboards, according to the holidays and things like that.
Right. Now, I know that when you were very, very young, I think you were 18 at the time, you got two huge honors. You got a full scholarship to the Barnes Foundation in Philadelphia, which is very prestigious, and you got a full scholarship to the Art Students League in New York.
Yeah, and it was just wonderful, except that they happened at the same time.
So how did you manage?
Well, first I went to New York ahead of time so I can get a job and save some money. And then
Did you travel back and forth between
yeah,
New
I
York?
traveled back and forth from New York to Philadelphia. Now, one of the things, I was going to the Barnes Foundation. When I told him about the scholarship, he sort of got angry. He said, well, how are you going to manage it? So I told him I had a job and I would try to use the money I had there. And
You mean for commuting and
the commuting and all of that, and I said I already checked it with Stuart Conness, who was the head curator of the league at that time, and he said it would be all right, and that if I went to Barnes, I could come to evening classes at the league.
So they could work that out.
What was really wonderful, the next day when I came into the Barnes Foundation, Dr. Barnes gave me an envelope and he said, I don't want you to open it here and I don't want to talk to you about this. I just take this and at your leisure look at it. And I thought, I can't imagine.
What it could be.
In the envelope he had gotten me a whole slew of tickets. By train.
Oh, how nice, so that you could commute.
Yeah.
That was
Now,
lovely.
a lot of people, think of him as difficult and so on. But he was a benevolent tyrant in his own way.
All right, well, I really want to talk a little bit about your being at the Art Students League. And I do remember you telling me that you were invited into the Artist Club.
Yes.
Now, this was a time when the art center of the world was shifting from Paris to New York.
Yes.
And abstract expressionism was just exploding.
Yes.
And the fact that these men who were in their 40s and 50s probably at that time accepted an 18-year-old girl into their midst and voted you into the Artist Club was a great honor.
It was, but I have to say the president of the Artist Club was someone I had graduated high school with. And he also went to Temple University, which I did. And when he invited me to come, and he said, you should be in the club. Why, that was Ray Handler. He used to have a gallery in Michigan, I believe. And
so he was actually introducing you to these other artists.
Yeah, he was the president of the Artist Club.
I see.
And he was one of these artists I could never understand. He always painted daisies.
Okay.
But, in the long run, I got to know a lot of the artists.
I know you did, and I know that that you became very friendly. And the fact that they really accepted you, being so young, is a real compliment or a real recognition of the fact that you were someone that they respected.
That's
so I
true.
think that was really very important. And I remember you telling me some wonderful stories. I remember you telling me the story about when you modeled for Salvador Dali. Would you share that with our audience?
Well, this was really quite a story. Dali was looking for a model who would be sort of like Arabic, you know,
Egyptian.
dark hair and dark complexion and so on. And they said, oh, and he was paying something like $15 an hour.
Which
and
was a lot of money.
in those days. And I did not hesitate to suggest different people, but I had some friends, 3 or 4 male friends on this end and then the other end. And they said, oh, Dina, that's for you. You look exactly, you could be an Egyptian or whatever. And I said, but I don't want to go. Don't worry, we'll take you there. And I said, you don't know where he lives, but he did live in the Regis Hotel.
St. Regis.
In New York, and he had a whole floor and a huge living room that he used as a gallery. Not a gallery, studio.
Right.
Well, when Dally saw me, he said, I think you'll do. Come and we made plans. I should come there a certain day.
And the whole idea, if I remember this correctly, that you told me, is that none of your friends had any money. And
That's right.
That if you could get some money, they could have a good dinner.
Yeah, they could have it, and I thought, well, this will carry us, because we were eating pasta almost every night in different parts. Well, anyway, I'm walking along Fifth Avenue, 3, 4 guys on this end, 3, 4 guys, and I said, you know, I changed my mind, I don't want to go. They were pulling me. Anyway, I did get to the St. Regis, and I did get up to see Dally. And he says, you do know that you're posing in the nude. I took a big gulp and I thought, well, you know, I'll just say yes and see what happens. Now, he opened the door. He had 2 mustaches that went around in a circle on his cheek.
I remember that.
And then he says, well, you can go into the other room and change. And I provided a robe for you. Fine. And I figured, how am I going to do this? I'm going to have to close my eyes or turn off the brain or something. Anyway, he is laying on one of his velvet couches, and he's waiting for me to come out. So I come out, and he says, well, take it off. Now, you know, I have never done anything like that before or since. And I took off the robe, and I just did not look at him, except for one moment. One of his mustaches went kaplunk off his cheek.
Oh, no. So they were pasted on.
They were, and we both laughed. He liked the fact that I was a student at Barnes also, and he showed me some of his work later on when I had my robe on.
He was very eccentric, I understand.
He was extremely.
Extremely
And he
eccentric.
came to the Barnes Foundation upon Barnes' invitation, wore a black cape, and came into the main gallery, saw the Cézanne, Mount Saint Victoire, and he got down on his hands and knees, spread his hands as if he was praying, and was that in that position for the next 3 hours.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
Extraordinary. That's really extraordinary.
Yeah.
Now, I'm trying to remember some of the people, some of the abstract expressionists that you were particularly friendly with. I know you were friendly with Lee Krasner and Pollock, her husband. You're friendly with Louise Nevelson,
Yes.
who's a fine sculptor.
And Dorothy Dana.
And Dorothy
who
Dana,
was
yes.
David Smith's wife.
And David Smith was the very famous sculptor, and
Yeah.
Dorothy Dana. And how about Franz Klein? Did you know him?
Oh, yes, I knew him. You know, we always were like cocktail friends, and he always had a stunning girl around him. But I didn't know that he wasn't really quite a null man, even though he did these very pure black and white paintings. And he was making money hand over fist. And at the end of his life, he made so much money, he bought himself a Ferrari.
Well,
You know what the price of a car like that?
Huge, I know that. Well, was there one special one that you were particularly close to of the abstract expressionists?
Well,
I know you were close to Adolf Gottlieb.
oh yes, he was such a sweet man. I really loved him. I don't know how he ever married the woman he married. She was a school teacher and she was giving him a hard time. But he too
Well, some of these men were supported by their wives while they were busy working.
But then he started to make very big money.
Sure.
And he decided he wanted to get a divorce. And she made it as difficult as she can to keep him from doing that. And he actually died after.
That's too bad. Well, did you have a favorite among them? One that you felt the closest to?
Well, I certainly liked Willem de Kooning. I know he had a problem with alcohol, but
all these guys were good drinkers.
Well, that's what I used to say. If only I could hold my liquor better. Who knows what could have happened?
Well, you told me once about dancing on the table at the...
Well, I was with Franz Klein on one side and de Kooning was on the other side.
Don't tell me you were trying to keep up with them drinking.
Well, Franz Klein said, did I ever have a Boilermaker? And I never heard of that. So he said, I'll teach you how to drink a Boilermaker. I thought it was going to be a regular, soda pop drink or something. But it wasn't.
What's in? I don't even know what's in one.
Well, you first, it's a whiskey drink that you gulp down in one shot, and then you're supposed to drink a beer like a chaser.
It sounds horrible.
And so, dancing on the table by the eighth one was hard. Well, I was a kid. I didn't know what I was drinking.
You drank 8?
8.
Oh my God.
But
That's amazing. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was your work in Mexico. I remember that through the Barnes Foundation, you
gave me a grant to study. The fourth year of the Barnes Foundation, actually, because the war had ended, many of the galleries in Europe were closed.
Right.
So he said it wouldn't be any point. There was only 5 people left in the class from a number of 45.
Wow.
And he said it wouldn't make any sense to go to Europe at this point.
Right.
But he said, any place you guys want to go, I'll stake you for a year.
Wow. So you chose Mexico?
Yes, because I wanted to take a cross-country bus trip.
So now, when you got to Mexico, how did you and the other Barnes people, how did you meet artists in Mexico?
Well,
how did they arrange
actually, I had some friends who were already settled in Mexico.
What part of Mexico?
It was Cuernavaca, and it was, what's the place down south, Acapulco, and they were. One was a nurse and one was a dress designer, and they had their own problems of why they were there. I won't go into that, but we decided we would rent a house together.
Oh, nice.
And that was nice, except it took a whole week for the pool to fill.
Dina, you've been called a very bold and poetic artist, and very dramatic. I mean, when you see a Dina Guston Baker painting, you know it's you.
Yeah.
And do you think that's a fair description?
It is a good description. Some of the critics objected because they said, I go my own way.
Which is right.
Which I would think, well, aren't you supposed to?
Yeah, that, to me, that would be definitely a positive. And I know that you've been given so many awards, and you know, and I had to make notes because honestly I couldn't remember them all. They're pages and pages and pages. But a couple of the things I will mention is that your awards are so extensive. I know you're a member of Who's Who in American Art. Mm-hmm. I know you're a member of the National Association of Women Artists in D.C. I know you've done a gazillion things. I'm trying to be selective and pick out the most exciting ones. I know also that you had wonderful shows in Germany.
Yes, I did.
And where was the Germany?
It began in, it was handled by our State Department here. And it was just by chance someone who, they were looking for someone, like Philip Pearlstein was one of the artists before me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they were looking for an American artist, and someone said, well, she's a very good artist, blah, blah, blah.
And I know you had 3 different shows in Germany.
Yes, at Hamburg, and Munich, and then Regensburg. And
those were very successful shows.
When the show got back to the United States, a lot of things sold. Mm-hmm. Over there, because it was museums, you know, they don't buy that way.
Right.
And then they have a totally different system when it comes to setting up a show, or the dealer usually buys the whole show like that.
Really?
Yes, and then he puts in the price he wants.
He makes the market.
He makes it.
Yeah, he makes the market. That's not uncommon in England also. And I'm trying to remember, what other country did you have a show?
Oh, well, let me see. Well, basically, it's been on the East Coast, and Boston, and New York, certainly Florida. I have a show right now at the Jersey City.
I know you do. And you're involved with the Palm Beach Cultural Council.
Yes, and I had a big show there, and Rena Blades is the CEO, and she really loves art, and the nice thing is she liked my art.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, I know that you recently set up a scholarship.
Yes, I did.
Which I congratulate you on doing that. That's really wonderful.
Well, you know, it's for women who are 60 or near 60, because I found when I was a member of Women in the Arts, I was taking home some women that, when I hear what they ate, like cat food and stuff like that.
Well, I know art is very difficult to choose as a profession unless you really...
Our country does very little to support this kind of art. I'm not saying they're that way. I don't think they're that way with the entertainment arts. But with the painting and the sculpture or anything that sort of like has new ideas, new possibilities, new in terms of, you meet an artist who has something in them that they need to say in a totally different way. It doesn't have to be my way, but it has to be what they are about.
I think also many of the women artists struggle so financially.
Yes.
If they're not connected with a really good gallery.
Well,
so I really think setting up that scholarship is... Now, is that to be designated to one artist each year? How is that going to work?
Yes, I think it's every other year.
Every second year.
Yeah, I found a lot of these older women, they would be on the brink of dying, and a couple of them did die, and their work was being annihilated, put into the dumpster. They have families, they have children, and I don't know how they thought. I thought it was devastating to hear this.
I remember one of those stories about the woman who had 2 sons, and when she passed away, they threw all her artwork in the
dumpster. And if it wasn't,
that's heartbreaking, because you think somebody has put so much of their life.
They've known her, she, and she's their mother, and all their lives. And,
unbelievable.
And it is. And
now, how does a person go about entering? I mean, I understand it's like a competition, and you and the head of the cultural council determine who is the most worthy, or who is the best artist. How do you determine that?
Well, the word gets out. They send notices out to different people, and
do they submit slides?
Yeah, they submit background and some slides, or they'll. Now you could send pictures by the computer and so on.
Yeah, they put it on a JPEG.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of it was appalling.
The art. Well, what passes for art today, you and I would not consider art.
Well, that's it. I mean, what you see on painted or walls of apartment houses really has nothing to do with art.
I'm well aware of it. that. It's unfortunate.
It is.
But now tell me a little bit, would you share with us about the woman who won, because this is the first annual. What was her art good? Was she?
Well, actually, all the artists, she seemed to have the more of a risk taking. And it was more of the caliber of expressionism. She was a great admirer of Joan Mitchell. But it's good for Joan Mitchell, and not always good for the artist who want to be like her.
I understand that perfectly.
Yeah.
But I'm sure she was thrilled to be chosen.
Yes, she was, and she was an Italian girl, and she really didn't look her age at all. And
well, that's wonderful that you did that.
Yeah.
And I know that you were greatly appreciated.
Oh, well, I felt something has to be done. Rosenberg was very great that way, no matter how many drinks he had. If somebody came to him and said, I need to pay the rent, my wife is pregnant, I don't have a job, blah, blah, blah. And he says, how much do you need? He tells him he's
Rosenberg was very generous.
Very generous.
Well, were any of the other abstract expressionists that generous?
I think so. Maybe not as much like, of course, he was a great showman. He had a huge party on a boat for his birthday. But, a lot of them tried to do their best to help. And the funny thing is, always mainly the men were helping the men.
Right.
And a lot of women fell by the wayside. If they died, their work got evaporated, or,
Well, that was unfortunate, but certainly among the abstract expressionists, I think it was much easier for the men.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And, it's like the old boys club in those days.
Yeah, well, that's what they call themselves. But basically, most of them were helpful to each other, and if they had girlfriends who were artists, they were helpful to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, like, what's his name? Pollock's wife, Lee Krasner.
Yeah, we were friends, and she was a very attractive girl when she was young. As she got older, things were very tough for her, and he was quite cruel at times.
Dina, I don't think we should be telling those stories. I think we ought to skip the cruel part.
Right. No, but, he had a kind of humor, too. I came one day to have lunch with her, and I see Pollock out there. he had his studio is extremely small, but he decided he wanted bigger space to work in, so he tore away most of a big square of grass, and he put pebbles, and then on top of that, I don't know whether he put cardboard or wood or something. And he's there working his little arms off, and I went up to him and I said, "Jack, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm painting, can't you see?" And so I said, "Yes, but you know, Jack, it was a gray day." I said, "Oh, it rains." And he said, "It'll only help the painting, Dina."
Well, that's one way certainly of looking at it.
Yeah.
It's certainly one way of looking at it. Now, what about de Kooning? Did you have much of a relationship with him? Or was it more like the very casual kind of?
Well, it wasn't quite casual, but you know, he and Elaine de Kooning were separated for a long time, off and on, and I would say that de Kooning was a very interesting man, as a man. When he painted, the interesting thing is he never drank. And I was thinking he should only paint more so he would stop drinking. Actually, it really did him in the end.
Well, didn't he start off in America as a sign painter or a house painter?
Yes, he was a house painter. That's how he came to use those big, wide brushes.
Brushstrokes, that's what I thought.
And that was just to watch him paint.
Wow.
That man, you know, a lot of what you will do in art when it comes to painting, you will take the risk. You will take the chance.
The good painter will. The good painter.
Well, any painter, if you don't do that, you get stifled. You get
in a box.
Yeah, you just don't develop. But you always have to take the chance. And you always have to express how you feel about it. Not in words, not in music, not anything, but someplace inside your gut, it has to respond to what you're doing.
So it has to be the emotional connection to the work.
Yes.
Essentially.
And that's the time it counts, not. De Kooning was one of these people, I don't know how he did it, whether the liquor helped him, but when he picked up a big wide brush and put one stroke on canvas, it was glorious. And you know, it had so much in it. His sculpture was also, in that way, kind of very expressive.
Right. Well, let me ask this, Dina. As an artist, what is the connecting link? Because obviously everybody is an individual. Everybody brings their own taste, their own concepts to an art show or to looking at a piece of artwork. What do you think is really the greatest connecting link? Why is it that I can look at a painting of yours and respond viscerally, and I can look at a painting by someone else and not respond at all?
Because so much of what you're seeing has something to do with the soul of who you are and in the artwork. And actually, when you say it on canvas, you are basically, in your inner soul, you're trying to communicate that kind of painting to people, because in the long run, this is what the country and this is what the world is about. How can we make this glorious and bigger and better?
And how do we communicate that feeling?
Yeah.
That feeling is
it's
so
a
powerful.
very, you know, I hear women or men say, "I know what I like." Well, that's ridiculous. They don't know what they like because they haven't usually read a book about anything. They think that art is painting little drips and drabs and houses with red roofs or something. Not that. it's much more intellectual, and it's much more part of what we're about.
Solo's about. Well, Dina, thank you. You've been a wonderful guest, and I hope perhaps you'll come back and visit us again.
I should love to. I enjoyed this very much.
It was wonderful, and thank you so much for watching Lighten Up with Isabel, and I hope this has been a very illuminating program for you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time on Lighten Up with Isabel.
Until next time, remember to live a more joyous life. Lighten up.